All right, we got my boy Yoseph here. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the camera?
What up? My name is Yoseph Assefa. Tully's homie of 25 years or something like that. 24 years.
So here's what we're doing. The whole idea behind this podcast is the Creative Questions podcast. And my idea is to talk with creative people that have used, they're basically creative entrepreneurs. Like you've went outside of the normal boundaries of what it means to be a business person or what it means to be a creator to pursue your goals.
Sure.
So first I want to start with, where are you from?
I'm from, I was born and raised in Ethiopia.
Okay.
Moved to the United States when I was almost 14 years old.
Well, let's start there. What was it like? What are your earliest memories of being in Ethiopia? What was that like?
Oh man, I was really lucky growing up. I lived in an area where it was just a beautiful place, and my parents were both in education. So we were in the middle class of the community at that time, and we lived in a small town with a small college campus where my parents worked and taught at. So I had just an incredible experience growing up. It was free. It was just like, it was safe. One of those things.
What do you, I'm imagining that it was, because that's, you're a teenager, 14.
Yeah.
So what are your first memories of being a creative person? I'm assuming it happened in Ethiopia.
100%.
How did that come out?
Oh man, in a lot of different ways. Like I was always into organizing things. So like even when my first passion was playing soccer, I was already my thought was, how do we put together a tournament? Like the whole community can come watch, and how can we, get some jerseys made up for our team. And like, that was like my first, I feel like my first way of being creative and like, and like getting people into a position where you can do something.
Were you able to organize a tournament?
Yeah,
How'd it go?
It was dope, man. It was dope. Yeah. I mean, we raised money from our parents in the community, went to a place and got jerseys, invited a team from across town to come play. That thing, they whooped us like pretty bad. I mean, they were good, but it was just like a spectacle where there was like, 100 people on the stands.
People showed up.
You know what I mean? So that was like my first one. It was really satisfying to move people.
We're gonna get into it more, but that sounds like it was the first event that you organized.
Yeah, pretty much. And I literally just thought about that for the first time, like right now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that was really the first event.
What was musically and art-wise, what was inspiring you when you were in Ethiopia? Like, do you have a memory of that?
So at that time, you got to think like most stuff was super local.
Sure.
We didn't have like,
So more Ethiopian traditional music.
Everything was traditional music and reggae.
A lot of reggae?
Yeah. We had a community that was like about 30 minutes away from where I lived. A place called Shashamene where Rastafarians lived. That's where like the Ethiopian, government at the time gave them some free
acclimated land for the Rastafarian movement.
Yeah, so because they looked at Ethiopia in such a way.
So you grew up kind of adjacent from that, right? Like around the corner.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is, our perspective of them was different than what everybody else think. Like Ethiopians there were like, whoa,
when you were there.
When I was there.
Yeah,
like the perspective of people there at that time versus like when you come here and you look at like the Rastafarian culture and all that stuff and the way that it kind of intersects with everything is totally different. It's just amazing to know like one thing can have like 5 different meanings.
And it's really cool to be able to experience it from different lenses, like experiencing it from a young person where the Rastafarian community holds the Ethiopian culture to such a high regard, and you haven't experienced the world's view of it. So you're just like, oh, hey, okay,
here,
And then you come to America.
Yeah, and it's this own big, movement. that affect so many people like internationally. So
When you first got to America, where did you move to?
first moved to Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was a small town where Oklahoma State University is. That's where my dad got a scholarship to go do some research, and total culture shock. Like, did not, a little bit of movies and shows that I've seen in Ethiopia of America. I was expecting like big city, you know what I'm saying, like
When you get to
Cosby
Oklahoma,
Show.
the Dust Bowl.
Yeah, really. We flew into Chicago, went to Dallas, flew to Dallas, and then drove to Oklahoma City, like Stillwater, Oklahoma. So like it just kept getting worse. Like every flight, every drive was
it's just like, what the fuck am I
like, where are we
doing?
going? Yeah, like
Where are these people taking me?
Exactly. So
How long were you in Stillwater?
about 3 years, a little over 3 years. My dad's program was only 2. He tried to get jobs out there, like to stay, but it just wasn't moving. So he just heard good things about Colorado. We had an uncle out here. We came, visited, liked it, and we moved to Fort Collins, Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah. So another college town where my dad tried to, ended up getting a job there.
Yeah.
And then we stayed there. Yeah.
So culturally, what was your experience once you got to Fort Collins? Being in this
Culturally,
little bigger
man,
town?
you got to realize I was still catching up. So like, the 3 years in Oklahoma was like, just like hardcore core, education on like how to speak English and how to like interact with people. So I was barely getting by over there. And then it was also like culturally, it was just a rough place to assimilate at in Oklahoma. They just weren't as open as other places. So when I came to Fort Collins, it was so much more open. People were like so much more accepting that helped me just like accelerate my assimilation. Like the 2 years of high school I did in Colorado was like, that's when I really started like looking around. Like the first couple of years, it was just kind of like, how do I get through every day?
When did Americans version of reggae music and Rastafari, when did that take hold? And then also, when were you introduced to hip hop?
Hip hop. I mean, we were listening to hip hop even in Ethiopia, but it was really like because of the lack of communication. Like it was really old hip hop. So like in '95, I was listening to like MC Hammer when I came here.
Yeah.
So like when Tupac and Biggie were like
a few years back.
I was behind. I was like 4 or 5 years behind. So I knew hip hop. And then in Oklahoma, I didn't really, they were really into like West Coast hip hop at the time, or at least in my area. I didn't really dive into it. When I moved to Fort Collins and started going to school there, I just had more time to even like think about music and culture and stuff like that. And that's when it hit me. It's around the time of like, Raucous Records and Most and people like that started popping off like late 90s. Yeah. Like when that started popping off in high school, I was like the kid that was like wanting to create events. I wanted to start creating events immediately.
You want to start throwing hip hop
immediately.
Events.
Yeah. Like and Fort Collins, just funny enough, didn't have enough hip hop. Like it was a wide open hole.
There was a gap that needed to be filled.
Yeah, it was just obvious for me. So I was like, as soon as I got into college,
What was the first event you threw once you got to college?
It was just a party. It wasn't even a organized concert or anything like that. It was a party. It was actually, Fort Collins, like it was on upstairs of a Chinese restaurant, Teriyaki Wok.
The T-Walk, I have a history there.
Yeah.
I when I first started DJing, my first DJ gigs were at the T-Walk.
Those, they had a little bar upstairs. I mean, it holds about, 40, 50 people, like. And we used to eat there all the time. And
food was so good.
Yeah.
Still fine.
Cheap, and me and my boy, Alula, were just there. And we were like, yo, like, what does it take? And I think the deposit was like $200. Like, yo, we gotta, did it, just packed it out just because we had so many friends and so many different little...
And there was such a void.
It was a void. We had a nice DJ in there. So when we saw that, it was just, it's over from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started going.
And did that experience, were you still in high school or had you gotten to college by then?
That was literally between high school and college. As soon as I started having a little freedom, I started going.
So did that experience inform your college curriculum decisions?
A lot of it, yeah. Like especially like my social like friends and like what I ended up getting involved in. 100%. I was, I'm, I'm glad I graduated and all that, but I mean, I was going to college to class every day, like with a different aim, like how many people can I get to this concert? Like, what can I do? Like
Yeah.
I was already like, I felt like a school was like the second, side thing
It
almost,
was it
but
was it was it was a step in the steps of where you were
yeah,
trying
to
to go, but
experience
you
everything.
knew what you were gonna do.
Yeah, but I also knew with Ethiopian parents, I couldn't not go to school and like finish school. Like if I didn't do that, it's gonna
It would
it's
be a problem.
it's gonna hurt everything else that
Yeah,
that I
being
got going on. So it's like I still kind of kept it moving, but my focus was like, how do I get this energy going?
And what kind of events did you do? Like a mix? Were you doing like freestyle battles? Were you organizing club nights? Like what were you
Yeah,
doing?
both. Yeah. So the free my favorite the things that I was doing in Fort Collins was the freestyle battles. Like those were just like so like personal for me because I just loved battles at that time. And we used to rent out the Aggie Theater down there and do a battle, do battles. I mean, at that time, battling was such a big thing that like we used to get 20, 30 MCs to sign up,
Yep.
and, narrow it down to about 12 or 8 and put a couple of, real bands up front, so groups up front, listen. Those guys, some of the guys that are in Pretty Lights and, nowadays,
Yeah.
they used to have a group back then. And, but yeah, man, those were like my passion, kind of projects. And then I just started seeing all the people I knew, all the DJs I knew. We started just doing club events. Like we first started attaching them to big events like homecoming weekend and spring break. And then after a while, it just became a weekly thing.
You saw like an economic value in
Yeah,
throwing those parties.
yeah. It was just everything was right there, so it was easy to connect the dots.
Were you spearheading the creative direction of the events?
Yes, and like venue wise, like that was kind of like my focus was like my job was figuring out back then, like early 2000s, it wasn't just normal to go and get a really nice lounge or a club to be like, yeah, you can throw a hip hop party.
No.
You couldn't do that. Like
Yeah.
you had to like maneuver through the, someone or
Jump through the hoops.
Yeah, I mean, you got to assure them that this club is not going to be, destroyed because that's their immediate kind of
Based on the
whatever
reputation
movie they
and
saw or
music,
something.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Movies and shit.
so like that was kind of my job was, I networked a lot and met a lot of people and just try to find a way to find unique venues that people never had access to. So that was kind of the way that I kind of led the kind of the direction of what we were doing.
And it sounded like you finished college, you got your degree.
Yeah.
How quickly after you got your degree did you outgrow the Fort Collins market?
Oh, it was almost immediate because I was coming to Denver and seeing what was here and what wasn't here.
Who were the heavy hitters in Denver at the time that you were wanting to get out here?
So when I was coming out here, like the radio stations were still really big. So Case 107.5 had a huge sway on who's going to be doing what. I mean, promoters wise at the time we had 3 Deep Production, Kevin Kane, Diallo and his team, K-Tone. There was a good amount of people doing stuff.
Yeah.
And they were successful. I just felt like there was just still a ton of opportunity.
Yeah, still a niche.
I was excited that I didn't have to battle the people in charge to throw something. I actually had like a community of people that I can jump into and start working.
Which was some hip hop and then some Ethiopian people that were just like wanting to vibe.
100%. Like there was a lot of people around, 4 or 5 years around my age, either in college, just finished college, working, that were like young professionals, Ethiopian, Eritrean, Somalian, just Africans in general, and then the hip hop community
that wanted to find their space in the movement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's kind of what I focused on, and and just went from there.
What was the first event you did once you got to Denver?
Oh man, I think it might have been
what venue, like what I mean?
Yeah, I think it was called. I think I did a really big, like the big successful event I did was an after party for a CU-CSU game the year after I graduated.
Okay.
So the game was, I believe, at Mile High Stadium. And
Those games used to get so wild.
crazy,
too.
right? And I knew people on
There's
both
such like a
sides.
allure, a legend connected to that rivalry.
It was wild. It was at the Bronco Stadium. I mean, people used to get wild during those games. But I did an after party in downtown. I think it was called the Loft at the time.
Oh, okay, word.
It was on like 22nd and Park Ave or something like that. And two levels, and just, I mean, it was just like a CSU CSU and CU graduation party at once.
Who
like
won?
What it looks
Who
like.
won the game
Oh,
that
that
year?
year we lost. CSU lost. CU
CSU
won.
lost.
So they were close by. They came out just super peaceful. I mean, it was just such a great vibe. It was like
went well.
immediately people were like, "Yo, we're in the next one." You know?
How quickly did you transition that success into throwing regular events in Denver?
So before I jumped into throwing big events in Denver, the gap and the hole that I was seeing and I was excited about was on the media side. So there was no media outlet that was covering hip hop at the time. Westward is there, but literally it was completely ignoring hip hop at the time.
Yeah.
You know, that's in 2006. You know what I'm saying? And so I was adamant about creating some sort of publication that fed that community and that kind of like lived off of that community. So that's what I did first, is start the magazine.
Yeah. What was the name of the
It
magazine?
was called Fly Magazine. Fly Magazine. We were publishing 20,000 copies from about 2007.
20,000 copies
Monthly.
Monthly. So you're doing 20,000 copies monthly of Fly Magazine.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're getting sponsors from whoever,
Sponsors,
wherever.
ads, completely free. Distributed in like 100 locations.
Yeah.
Between Denver and Aurora. Some in College Town. We would send some magazines out to CSU and
Back
CU.
home.
Yeah. And that was like what I was excited about, because I just felt like, you know, when someone drops an album that was fire locally, like who talks about it? Like no one paid attention.
No one's paying
to it.
attention to the local scene.
Exactly. Like when somebody drops a clothing line, like where do we go to see is happening? Like,
And this is, I mean, something that has to be mentioned is that it's kind of pre-internet.
yeah, 100%.
So you're seeing a gap in the urban market, and so you create a publication to broadcast these events to celebrate, whether it's a new clothing company or a new artist dropping something or whatever.
Yeah. It was called, the tagline was Colorado's Urban Connection.
Hell
You know, Urban Network, I'm sorry. It's been a couple
Colorado's
of years.
Urban Network.
Colorado's Urban Network is what it's called.
And that's, 20,000 copies a month that's big. Like
big,
that's a lot of eyeballs.
Yeah, and I mean, people gravitated towards this so crazy. I mean, it was just people were excited to see themselves. Like local models were being featured in their music.
And I remember that era. I remember
Yeah.
you would celebrate those releases. Like you would want to see who and what was on the cover, what was featured in it.
Yeah.
Again, it's funny to say this, but it was pre-internet.
100%.
And so that was, if you were an artist, a hip hop artist or someone that loved like streetwear, those kind of things, like that's in locally you were curious of who's making moves. That's where you would look.
That's where you went. And I brought all that up to tell you that was that's how we kind of transitioned into making, those events like an ongoing business. Is with the magazine, we started doing 2 events a month. The first one was a release party for the issue every month, and the second one was a casting call and a party for the local models that ended up being in the magazine. So those parties became a really big kind of staples.
One of my things I preach to people all the time when I'm doing like one-on-one consulting is whatever you're trying to do, how do you make it serve you more than one way? Right. So like it sounds like with the magazine, it was a vehicle to get eyeballs on what you're doing, but then you're also creating this network to inform people about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then you were able to build a business around that.
100%, bro. Like I really get geeked up about win-win situations. There's so many win-win situations out there for people to take you know what I'm saying? Like I just feel like if your like attitude is you want to get something out of this situation and be able to say whoever you're dealing with is getting something out of it as well. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's the recipe in my opinion. That's
win-win.
what that magazine was, is like exactly what you said. Helping my network helping my promotions, but at the same time spreading the word for like
The audience gets to they get to participate and have information that's going to steer them to the things, the cultural things they're interested in.
Exactly. Yeah. So that magazine, and I forgot to offer. I did that magazine with my one of my really good friends, Brandon. Brandon Eubanks is a Denver native.
Yeah.
But I mean, we did it.
And you met Brandon up in Fort Collins?
CSU. Yeah. We met freshman year. So 6 years after, 6 years after we met, we started that magazine.
So he was probably with you while you guys were throwing events in Fort Collins.
100%.
You guys built it all together
the whole time. So that was fun, man. We did it out of our apartment and really shook up the city a little bit. And
what moving on to the next stuff. What were some of the iconic venues of the time that you were throwing parties at?
Oh man, weekly events we had, Purple Martini, at 16th Street Mall. That was like one of the sexiest nights, at that time for a hip hop. There's the old Real World House, Theory, right downtown low.
Yep.
We had a Friday nights there.
Yeah.
Sutra with our real good friend Mark.
The Theory one, it seems like echoes still. Like
100%.
People still talk about those
that vibe
nights.
was insane. Like that space was insane. By that time we'd gotten a really good handle on like what we wanted. Also like DJ wise and all that stuff. That's when we were really working.
You'd refined it to a certain point.
Yeah, heavy with DJ Big Spade and KDJ Bub at that time.
Yeah.
And then one of your old stomping grounds. We had some legendary parties at Funky Buddha.
Funky Buddha
was
almost on
one of my favorite
Wednesdays?
places. Well, we did Brown Sugar. Yeah,
started
on Wednesday.
and then all the off nights.
Yeah. Brown Sugar was. I still get, literally, bro. Like this New Year's Eve, I had somebody ask me like, "Why don't you guys do Brown Sugar again?" It's like there's like 100 parties.
Well, they kind of like
there's a lot of
Brown
R&B
Sugar's
parties.
like R&B night.
Yeah, that was now. So there's a lot of those out there. So I don't think we need another
You guys
one.
were ahead of your time.
But it was dope. It was dope. So like Funky Buddha, Sutra, Safari back when it was Safari. So a bunch of legendary venues over the years.
So something I kind of observed as like a spectator was, as your life moved on, you got into a relationship, started having kids, the prospects of wanting to be at the club 3 days a week got to a point where it wasn't as interesting.
100%.
And it seemed like you guys were always comfortable throwing really big events. What was the logic behind stepping away from throwing so many reoccurring events and really diving into some of the flagship, New Year's Eve parties, which you still do, and so on?
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. Just getting older, like I'm like I was telling you in college where I was doing heavy promoting, heavy networking, but I still had to make sure that I graduated. So I always try to have that balance. It's not even pressure from my parents anymore, right? It's just personally, I want to have that balance of.
It's not even pressure. It's something they gave to you.
Yeah, it's in me. Like I can't get rid of it. Like I want to get creative. I want to do new things. I want new challenges. But at the same time, how do I not completely disturb the rest of my life?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? While doing it. And you got to be honest. There's times where I miss opportunities because I'm calculating that. But at the same time, it's just that's my comfortable speed is being able to comfortably do what I need to do here with my family, but also be creative in different ways. So that's why we did, we walked away from the clubs and started doing big events and kind of developed those. So I've been doing a big New Year's Eve party the past 12 years. Sheridan downtown, 1,300 people, all you can drink, like all inclusive. Also brought on the last 8 years we've been doing the Denver International Festival. Another like once a year type of event.
Talk about that event a little bit.
Yeah, the Denver International Festival. Actually, funny the original story is the origin of it. When I was in Oklahoma, we lived in student housing, like international student housing, and once a year the little resource center there would allow they would ask all the international people to come there with like some sort of, food from their country.
Oh,
And basically it's just like to share, like
Yeah.
and I remembered like how excited everybody was, including myself. Like I made my mom come out.
You get to go around the world for a minute.
Exactly. Like I made her come and do the, traditional Ethiopian coffee setup because I was so excited to like show people where I came from, because there's language gap, there's all kind of stuff at the time. You're in middle school. So like it was a really good opportunity for me to be like, look how dope my culture is.
Yeah.
Like, and everyone was doing that. So I always felt like that experience could be a big thing. You know what I'm saying? And so I've always had this international festival idea in my mind, and finally did it in 2016 at Civic Center Park. Just immediate, you were involved, you helped me out. Immediate hit, like 10, 12,000 people.
Yeah.
Like 40, 50 vendors, free event. And it was just basically for someone to come in and go around the world. It's just food from 30 different countries, artists from, 20 different
Performing
countries.
various dances and songs.
Cultural dances, connected with a lot of community centers locally. Ethiopian Community Center, Chinese Community Center, like what can we do to show off what you guys got? And actually this year, I'm super, super excited. I'm partnering up with the 5 Points, and we're gonna move the festival to 5 Points.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
That's gonna be a really big move for us. But
It's the right venue for Denver.
for that event. Yeah, we felt the same way. So, and the reason I keep doing events like New Year's, I love that shit.
Yeah.
Like that shit is fun to me.
The build up, the prep, the nervousness, waiting, the jitters, waiting to see if people are going to show up, and
it's
then
incredible.
The pure chaos of the event itself, and then the wind down.
Yep. Just walking through like right after midnight on a New Year's Eve party where like 1,100 people just had a really good New Year's Eve experience.
Yep.
And like walking through that venue is like a really good feeling, So I don't think I'll ever stop doing like.
Let's rewind it just a little bit. Because you were talking about how excited you were back in Oklahoma to like showcase and share your culture. Is that what initially inspired you to team up with your business partner on the restaurants?
Yeah.
On the food truck?
Yeah.
To showcase the culture and like
100%.
redefine people's experience with that food?
100%. As soon as I was making friends here in Colorado and Fort Collins, as soon as I was like making some connections, like I was still using my culture to connect with people. So I was really quick to be like, yo, I can get my mom to cook for us. You like come to the house and check out this food. You know what I'm saying? And still the same experience, like still had the same feeling that I had when I was in Oklahoma of like sharing my thing. So I was like, oh man, this is great. And I also started noticing like every person that's tasting my mom's food loves this food. Like I'm a pretty picky person when it comes to food. So like I know certain people don't eat certain things, but like almost everybody was like, yo, this thing is amazing. Like I've never had it. So I was like, all right, I think there's something here. My goal was to open a restaurant with my mom in Fort Collins. Like I put together a whole business plan. Went and looked up some spaces with my mom. Like she wasn't really into it, but I was just dragging her to it. Like I'm like, this is what we need to do.
And how old were you when that happened?
This is 2000. This is before I moved to Denver.
Wow.
So before I moved to Denver, I was trying to open up a restaurant with my
early
mom.
2000s.
Yeah, right after college. I was like, if we don't do it now, somebody's gonna step in and do this.
Did someone do it?
What'd you say?
Is there an Ethiopian restaurant up there?
Oh yeah, there's. Yeah. And I was like super focused on it, but I remember something happened at the university my dad was working at, and he felt like there was gonna be like some budget cuts or something like that where it was gonna affect his job. And he was like, yo, we can't.
Not right now.
My shit is not, stable, so we can't do that right now. So they want a different direction. So I was like, all right, like that didn't work. And then when I came here, I was like, man, there's a lot of restaurants here, but they're all kind of similar. Like they're very traditional. They take time to get your food out.
They speak to the experience.
Exactly. It's a great, like the food most of the time is amazing, but it's not very accessible to somebody that's just never had it before. They might
Yeah.
not be, so I felt like, once again, saw a gap there. I was like, there's a lot of interest into this food. I've experienced it personally, and I'm seeing it at these restaurants, but I feel like they're only tapping like
Into
very
like a
local
market.
vibe. Yeah. And they were also, most of them were catering to Ethiopians as well.
That's
like,
what I mean by local,
specifically,
like
yeah.
local to the Ethiopian community.
Exactly. So, and then, yeah, like you said, my now business partner and really good friend Fatian, she was doing catering, and I was eating her food at like, I would go to a reggae show, and she would have like
A little table.
a little catering table, and you can buy a plate. It was fire, and on my own, I was kind of working on like, how do I open up a restaurant? I had a friend that I was kind of thinking about opening up like a really high class, culinary experience, Ethiopian type of place. That's kind of direction we were going. And then saw how much that was going to cost. And I was like, that's not possible right now.
Yeah.
And then that was when food trucks were first kind of taking off in Denver. I feel like, I mean, there was always food trucks like on the west side. And
The food truck
like the
experience that we
craze.
know now.
Yeah, like 2013, 14. That's when they were first like bubbling, and I was like, that's the way I can do it without spending 250K. I can try to save 30, 40K, and I did. And right before I was kind of making the big moves on it, I was like, it doesn't make sense for me to try to do this on my own while I know someone that's a good friend of mine that's doing it at a different, level, a different way. She's passionate about it, and I know she loves it. Like, it's not just a side gig to her. So I approached her. I was like, yo, I'm thinking about doing a truck. You're doing this. Like, do you want to just do it together? It was literally that simple. She was at my house for a barbecue. She was like, yeah, let's do it. Met the next week. And then we launched the first Ethiopian food truck in Colorado on, I think it was 2016. And
How quickly did you guys see success? How long did it take?
we saw success, like financially. It took about a year for us to proving our concept.
Yeah, the response of the community.
Yeah, it was quick. Quick. I mean, because the first questions that we had for ourselves was like, yo, Ethiopian food is a little traditional. Like, are people going to be comfortable eating it out of a truck? Like, is that going to be too advanced, like too accessible? So like, that was what we were trying to prove first. And it was like
Instant.
immediately. And we started figuring out, okay, these events right here are perfect for us. Well, we luckily got accepted to Jazz in the Park the first year. So that launched us in a big way, because I mean, you see 20,000 people there on a Sunday, So like, but yeah, pretty immediate, man.
You guys still doing Jazz at the Park to this day?
Jazz in the Park still. Summertime, 10 weeks. I wish it was longer, but it's like 10 Sundays, and it's amazing every week. But yeah, we still run the truck. The truck is out. We shut it down in the winter.
How long after you guys launched the truck did it take you to jump out and open your own concept?
It was about almost 4 years.
4 years?
4 years. We ran the truck, and we did catering in the truck for 4 years before we got our space.
Okay.
And we've been at that space for 5 years now. So
At the
Edgewater Public Market.
And what's the name of the concept?
Konjo Ethiopian food. Konjo means beautiful. Konjo was Konjo Catering was the business name that my partner Fatian was operating under since she started her business a while ago before the food truck. So we were very honest with each other, and we just came up with a ton of names, and then we were like, we already have something that's already like
that already works.
Has a great name in the community. You've already built it up, so like, let's push that. And I love the meaning of it. It's Ethiopia. It's beautiful Ethiopian food. So, but yeah, so it's in the Edgewater Public Market though, inside of a food hall.
And then back to the international festival. I'm assuming that because you had the food truck and because you had the experience throwing events, that also made sense to like really tap into the food truck community, be that network, that soccer tournament organizer, and start bringing people from all over, all walks of life together to do these culturally relevant events that showcase everybody.
Exactly. It was the Fly magazine again.
It's Fly magazine all over.
An event form, you know, like the international.
Like more mature and older. Everybody's graduating.
Everybody's grown. So like now, I was already parking with food trucks from Colombia and sushi trucks and pizza trucks, and I knew their hustle. I knew.
And just like when you were in Oklahoma, you love to celebrate your culture and their culture, and you built a rapport with them.
Boom. So I had real friendship with these guys. So my first festival was like, it was literally I sold out the food truck spots in like a week.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They were like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah, let's go.
And then it ended up being like one of their best nights. I mean, they still tell me like that's one of their best events every year because the people that come to that event, they're really just wanting to try. You know, they're like, oh man, I've never had, empanadas from Argentina. Like I want to try those, and I want to try the Ethiopian sambusas. Like, so it's a really great experience.
It's a great opportunity to try the world.
Yeah, and experience and celebrate everybody. That's it. That's the whole idea.
One thing I told you this when you first launched it all. I loved the presentation of it. The International Fest. I loved how it looked.
Right.
I loved the way that you guys showcased it on the videos over the years.
Yep.
And then like reproduced that for the community, and it just always felt good to think about and be a part of.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's my favorite event right now. My favorite event goes back and forth between New Year's and that. It's just such a fulfilling event, and
they're two different kinds of events too.
Totally different. Yeah. But you were a huge part of it because while you were running like 5 of the biggest clubs in Denver, I was like, yo, I need bartenders.
Yeah, I need help with these bars. Yo, we need ice. Yo. Yeah.
It was good that we were close to the clubs, but still, you got like, I was able to do the first 2 or 3 years and not even think about the bar and be like, yo, tell these guys got this. So like, I appreciate that as usual.
Well, you know, what I've learned about myself over time, I was talking about this earlier at some point, is I've kind of always had this need to serve people.
Yeah.
In whatever capacity I can. So in that situation, I had the know-how and the manpower to help you guys organize a bar, and we were able to create an opportunity for your guests to come and celebrate these different cultures, and it was a good thing. But my whole essence is, and even where I'm at now, and what I'm doing with these ice cream shops, or what we're doing with these ice cream shops, and what I'm doing with this podcast, and all of the things I have in my future, it's devotion and servitude. Like that's my future.
100%. I mean, you've been doing it. I know you personally, so you've been doing it. So this for me is just like, it's not, none of this surprises me. So,
right.
So it's dope.
So you're a tried and true creative person, creative entrepreneur who has found success kind of from the beginning, right? Like when you first decided to throw a party at the T-Walk, and then you decided to throw weekly stuff, and then you start doing bigger parties, and then you decided to do food trucks, all these different ventures. What do you think it is about your approach that informs the success that you found?
Yeah. I mean, obviously there's a bunch of failures between that,
Absolutely.
We got to be real about that. But I do feel
Fly
like
magazine, not a failure, but
it's not printing anymore.
But it's another creative endeavor that that I think from most angles you could say it's successful.
Oh, 100%.
So how is it, what is it about your approach that you could pass on to other people that could show them some success?
I truly think that you got to pay attention to the market. Like you really got to be, and there's no specific way to do it, but you really got to understand where you're at, like what's available already, what's not available right now, what has been tried and didn't work. Maybe something that was tried was a good idea, it just wasn't executed the right way. Like you can sit back without spending $1 and really like look a bunch of stuff.
Study.
Like you could just study and not like read a bunch of books. I'm talking about just like, like go to places and go to these events and go to these businesses that you're thinking about competing with.
I remember listening to Ben and Jerry, the ice cream dudes, tell their story. And one of the things they did was they went, when they landed on where they were opening, they went there for weeks and just counted people that walked up and down the street
100%.
and like looked around at the ice cream landscape. They opted out of a traditional East Coast city like New York or whatever because of how much competition there was there. Then they went, I think they opened in Vermont.
Yeah.
And they looked at the market in Vermont, and then they went to a neighborhood and they said, okay, well this is the foot traffic. 100%. What does that look like?
Yeah, like I enjoy that, and I think it's necessary. Like, I mean, there's ideas right now that I'm working on that I want to do in the future, and I'm already following like 10 of those businesses in South Africa and Europe and New York just to like see what they're doing, what the holes are, like where they're gonna mess up at, like, and I think that's like the biggest thing for me, and just trying not to reinvent the wheel. Like I mean,
it simple.
Yeah, simple, and like doing something that's already successful, and just taking taking a different approach on it, and you can extend that thing another million years by just tweaking it just a little bit, and it's gonna attract a totally different group of people. You know what I'm saying?
A niche.
Yeah, so that's like, I mean, if I do come up with an idea that reinvents the wheel, great. I'm excited about it, right?
Yeah.
But I don't have to come up with something that reinvents the wheel for me to get excited.
Yeah.
Just as something that's already happening, how can I make it better, make it more available, make it my way? I think that's really my approach. There's really nothing complicated to it, and I enjoy it.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good insight.
Yeah.
What do we have to look forward to from you in the coming year, couple years, months?
Yeah. Like the biggest focus right now is the Konjo brand. We really have built an amazing team, an amazing menu.
We're on a busy street and there's a fight going on outside.
Colfax, baby.
Colfax and Creed. Anyway.
But yeah, so we've done the work to like make it. We're ready to expand. So we're looking at a couple of different opportunities. I wish I can, make announcements, but they're just not there yet.
What would you say? Let's sit on Konjo for a minute.
Yeah.
What would you say you guys have done to enhance and bring the Ethiopian or Habesha food experience to the public, like our more?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is telling the story. Like just telling the story of who we are as founders and what our food is about, what we focus on. I mean, you can have a 3-4 page menu if you want with an Ethiopian restaurant. There's a lot of things that we can put on the menu, but we focused it on the very simple things that we can cook fresh every day, right? So making it fresh, making it accessible, and then location, for a long time, when you ask somebody, like, have you had Ethiopian food? They'll tell you, yeah, like one time I went on East Colfax, it was amazing, but like, how accessible is it? Like, how come we don't have it in food halls?
Well, and to speak to the accessibility, one of my favorite things about Konjo is, if you know me, my wife is Habesha, and we've eaten at a lot of restaurants all over the place.
Yeah.
And my biggest complaint is, man, you go to like, bro, I just ordered food to go from the Nile, like 3 days ago. I ordered it. They're like, hey, it's gonna be done at 6:05.
Yeah.
So I made sure to show up at 6:10.
Yeah.
Right. And I was still there for 30 minutes.
Yeah. It's tough, man.
And so
it's like, that's exactly
that's
what
the problem
we focused on.
If you go to sit down in a restaurant like that, you're looking at an hour investment, hour and a half. And so what I appreciate from Konjo is you guys make amazing food, but you have packaged it in a way to the consumer that you can go there. I can order my food and be eating in 15, 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, 10 minutes. Like 10 minutes is where our goal is, and that's why we shrunk the menu. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't want to, set unexpected.
Just the hits.
We don't want to set unrealistic goals of like making our team try to like put out plates in 10 minutes when You know what I'm saying? People are ordering 20 different things. So it's shrunk. It's the fresh stuff, and it's the stuff that's healthy for you. It's the stuff that's delicious. It's still the authentic recipes in every plate. You know, like that's what it is. And like you said, you can order it on DoorDash. You can call in and come pick it up, and we'll be ready. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we focused on, and like the response has been amazing. And now, like any small business, we're trying to figure out how can we duplicate what we have at Edgewater Public Market. How can we, just be careful in expanding so it doesn't hurt what we have going on right now. And then also, like, there's some areas that we have targeted that we want to be in because we know that audience wants that food there. So just finding a good way to get there is basically the biggest thing. Yeah.
Outside of 5 Points International Festival this year, is there any other events that you have in the works that you're excited about?
100%.
I know you golf a lot.
Oh yeah. Golf is a
I haven't seen you tie that in yet. So I'm curious to see.
It's coming.
I'm curious to see.
Yeah. One of the things actually I'm working on is trying to figure that out. But event-wise, Denver International Festival, 5 Points. August 9th is the date. We'll make some announcements here in the next couple of weeks. But we're bringing. We skipped last year to do. We didn't do our Halloween event. That we
bringing Halloween back.
Yeah, at the Sheridan Event Center at Sheridan downtown. So Halloween, the 31st is a Friday. It was a weird day this past year. It was like on a Wednesday or a Thursday. I just didn't feel like
it was
doing
probably
one of those.
worth missing. Me being so close to the club world, like Halloween was kind of the economy, everything was weird.
It was a weird time, so we skipped last year.
It was a good year. You picked a good year to skip, which speaks to you paying attention, the way that you do.
Yeah, so this year we're bringing that back. We'll also have New Year's Eve, and then I'm working on just more smaller pop-ups. It's actually based on a conversation you and I had. The International Festival is a huge hit, and it's going to be a hit this year. But I want to figure out how to bring that experience and
micro, like we talked about.
100%.
Bro, I believe that all of the micro downtowns, like you have Denver, and then you have all these little subset downtowns, and all of them would like a version of the International Festival, right?
100%.
Like we talked about.
100%.
That's tight. I'm glad.
So I'm working on
to
that.
hear.
Yep. I have a couple of partnerships that are almost kind of solidified. So yeah, that's what I'm working on.
All right. This is a question that I keep trying to remember to ask every guest. If there's one book that you recommend, that you have to recommend throughout your life, like what is it? Like what book are you like, nah, you need to read this?
What was a book that I just got from a friend?
It could be, something that spoke to you as a young person, something that you revisit. That's like it always holds true. And
I mean, the easiest one for me that I read all the time is The Four Agreements.
The Four Agreements.
Yeah.
That's a great book.
Yeah, I love that book just because it's not about a specific thing, right? Like
was it with Don? What's his name?
I forget his name.
Don Miguel.
Yeah,
Don Miguel Ruiz, I think.
It might be, yeah. But that's a book that I can I actually, one of my colleagues that I've worked with for years gave it to me, not knowing how much I liked it, and I've read it again, and I just I really believe if your perspective and approach to things is a certain way, that's the big source of your success or failure. So that book just reminds me of the stuff that's not about the numbers or the location or whatever. It's how are you approaching everything? That type of thing is kind of what I need.
What's your orbit?
Yeah, exactly.
That's actually one of the books that I personally revisit probably every year to 2 years.
Yeah.
That's in a heavy rotation for me because of all of the truths that exist in it. And again, you might lose track or sight of what you're trying to do and the reasons you're trying to do it. And that's the kind of book that when you do revisit it, it reminds you to to make sure you're speaking your truths and living your truths and existing in a way that is in harmony with this experience.
Yep, 100%. And the way my personality is, because I get so locked into an idea or a concept or work or whatever, I need that kind of thing to be like, all right, like, you know, you're focusing on the details. You kind of need to.
I'm from like a really rough and complicated street situation, and I have the tendency to veer off back to some hood shit all the time. Like my brain just goes there. It's where I'm from.
Yeah.
And that book is one of the books, like when I feel myself like getting anxious and sort of like going back to some of my other like maybe lower natured things, my undeveloped ideas, I'll jump back into that book pretty quickly and like, okay.
Yeah.
Recenter. Recenter and all that.
For sure.
Hell yeah. Well, it's my guy Yoseph, Creative Questions Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, bro. That was dope.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the coffee.
Boom.
Colfax and cream.
Thank you.